Welcome to
Tip Tuesdee.
Two Tips on a Tuesday.
Tips on a Tuesday.
Two Tip Tuesday.
Two Tip Tuesday. You get 2 tips.
Tip Tuesdee.
Welcome to Two Tip Tuesday. So we're giving you 2 tips today, 2 tips. So the 2 things we're going to talk about today, how to label your wood for your stiles and rails. So we have the stiles are all right here. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that all these pieces here, every single one, all these with circles on them right here, have the same grain pattern and they match when they go together. So the grain's going to match from stile to stile, and it's also going to match going up this way too. So you're going to have the grain matching this way, through here, all through here. So this is basically going to be one board, and all the grain's going to match. Just like all these panels here, all these 6-inch panels are going to match all the way across the entire project. Right now, all we're going to do is I'll show you how I mark the bottoms of these boards so I do not forget which one's which, and it's pretty simple on Two Tip Tuesday. Hey everybody, Mr. Kevin here, and welcome
to Tip Tuesdee.
Tipsy Tuesday. No, this is a 2 Tip Tuesday. I gotta put on my thing. So we talked about grain matching the stiles. You basically, when you're milling the wood, you just when you're ripping your boards, you keep these 2 together. So this is one door, and that's the other door. And that way the wood looks like one piece of wood, and it will make your everything look better. Well, for 2 tips, I got a lot of parts. What do I do about that? We'll have to figure it out real quick. Okay, ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do on a 2 Tip Tuesday is we're going to take our board. This board will be 4 stiles. So you kind of got to keep track of all your material and your pieces and parts, so that way everything looks like it's flowing as one thing. How do I do 2 Tip Tuesday when I got like 12 tips to make 2 things? All right, well, we're just going to go through 2 tips and it'll be 900. If you want to keep track of all your boards, make sure you're using the same boards to keep the grain matched and all that other cool thing. You mark the ends. You put a little arrow, which direction is up. And then you can label them A, B, C, and D. Okay, and just label the ends. And you label the ends no matter what you're doing, because I know these are all going to be 2-inch boards. No matter what you're doing, whether you're plane it, face joint it, rip it and all that, you'll know which board it is. It'll be number 1 and you'll know what side's up. And you only have to do that on one side. So and that keeps everything together. I labeled these earlier when I was milling them. And then I did mark the face with my little woodworking hieroglyphics. But I just did that because I wanted to show you what it looked like when it was together. So all of these were labeled. So this was one board, okay? One board, 4 stiles. So I want to keep all the grain matching together. This is the best way I found to do it, is just to label the ends and not the top. Because the top you're going to face joint and plane off and you'll forget what the hell it is. That's tip number 1. 4 hours long. Jeez. So for the second part of the tip, we're going back to the plans real quick. And you can see I labeled even more parts. And I do this to all of my plans that I have to grain match all of the material. Okay? And then I also mark everything off on the plans as I'm cutting them. So I have a cut list with all the parts on it. And usually what I do is once I've cut the part, and this is another tip, just take a highlighter and highlight it. That way you know that all these are done and they're in a pile somewhere and they're cut. The same way with all of them. So at the end, my plans kind of look a little silly because they're drawn all over. But it's just for me anyway, it's not for anybody else. So the first thing I do is I label all my parts on the end grain. When I'm rough milling everything, with the arrow going up, showing what ends up and what letter it is. I label everything from left to right. I number everything from left to right, from 0 to 6 on this one. I start at the top and work my way down from A to E. So everything goes across, everything's grain matched. I mark it all on the plans. When I get done milling it and cross-cutting everything, I highlight it to show that I've milled that board. So it's somewhere around here milled. I didn't do that to this one because I just got done and I laid everything out and I went, I should film this. I'll show you what it looks like when it's all laid out. I'm gonna have to do it in pieces because this thing's kind of big. And yeah, it'll be cool, man. All right, so here are some of the panels that I have labeled. You can see how the grain continues and matches. So this grain continues all the way through to the next door. These styles that are right here are labeled. They were labeled on the bottom, but so I labeled those. This was the face. There's A1 and A2, and this is the face. I also put the hieroglyphics on here so I know the grain continues through here. So when I lay the whole thing out to make sure that I have my 97 inches with my face frames, I include these little skinny things right here. They're 3/32 of an inch thick. It's a good gap in between drawers. It's either that or a 1/4 inch I usually, but this one they wanted it tight, so that's what we did. And there's all the parts, and I laid them all out and I measured everything, and it all worked out. So these at one time were all labeled on the end grain, and once I got them ripped to size and thickness, I labeled the outside so I knew which one was which. These are labeled on each side of the style. Up here you got the little hieroglyphics so I know what they are, and they continue all the way up, and I'm going to cut them all to size afterwards and all that happy horse doo-doo. So labeling sometimes can get kind of complicated. All right, so happy Tip Tuesday, 2 Tip Tuesday. So 2 Tip Tuesday is make sure you label all your parts very well. You draw them out on the plan, 2 Tip 2, there's 2 tips. Make sure you start from the left to go right, or right to left if you're in China or Japan. If you have more than one thing to label, make sure you label it from the top down, so from A all the way down to Z, or use numbers. That way you can do an infinity number, so you start at 1 and go to 1,000,000, which would take a while. And then yeah, double check your layout. So I lay it out on my bench as big as I can with all the little spacer blocks in there like I showed you. I put little spacer blocks. So it has my 1/8 inch gaps between the doors and between the drawers and all that stuff. That little 1/8 inch adds up. And if that's not in there when you're measuring, and then you add 6/8 in there, you're going to be like, oh crap, I'm 3/4 of an inch too long. Math. Math is important too. We'll go over 2 Tip Tuesday math someday. Alrighty. Well, that's about it for me. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Hit the like button if you liked it. If you didn't, hit the unlike button. I don't really care. And then comment down below and call me whatever you want to call me. Ask any questions you want. Subscribe and sign up for the Butcher Block giveaway, because someday I'm going to get to 100. When we get to 100, I'm giving away a Butcher Block. And Grain Butcher Block, one of my nice ones. So sign up. It doesn't hurt. You just push the bell. And Mr. Kevin, I'm a blockhead, and subscribe. And who cares? You don't even have to watch videos. Well, you know, you should just turn it on and walk away, and then come back and then turn it off when it's all over. All right, thanks for watching 2 Tip Tuesday, and I'll see you next Tuesday on 2 Tip Tuesday, where I give out 1,200 more tips. All right, bye guys. Second tip for Second Tip Tuesday, or second tip for Tipsy Tuesday. Second tip for Tipsy Tuesday is, hot. This is gonna work. Happy Tippy Tuesday. It says it's 78 with humidity of 50%. It feels like humidity of 1,000. People that live on the coast like me, if it gets 5 degrees above 60, they sweat to death. It's not a good thing.
2 Tip Tuesday.